Here's today's poll question. It is on X at 1080 The Fan. Is Oregon really going to win the college football championship this season?
Interesting.
Only two options.
Yeah.
You know it?
Yeah.
Or no way?
I'll say no way because I would say this about any team. Because what you're asking me to do is to take a team over the field. And there is not a single college football team that I would feel comfortable with right now saying I would take them over the field. Just wouldn't. And I've been saying this about Oregon for weeks. Oregon looks like the most complete team in the country. And I still believe if I'm voting, they're my number one team in the country. Partly because I think Oregon is just good, and partly because there's not another team that I look at and say that there's a complete team that's better. But if you think that Oregon is like this juggernaut, then you just haven't been watching, and Wisconsin just proved it. If Wisconsin even had a semblance of a quarterback, Oregon loses. If Boise State just kicks the ball out of bounds, Boise State wins. If Ohio State doesn't get a penalty, Ohio State wins. And you're looking at a 3-loss Oregon team. And this is not to discount Oregon, because you can do this with every team in the country. You can do this with Texas. You can do it with Alabama. And by the way, they've lost and Oregon has not. You could say this about Alabama. They're a play away. But and Oregon's been a play away 3 different times. The difference is Oregon makes the plays. So yes, Oregon's the best team in the country, but I don't know how anyone can say going into the college football playoff that you feel confident that Oregon is going to roll through this thing. You can't say that about anybody. So if you're asking me Oregon or the field, I will take the field, and I would say that about any other team that you brought up.
Well, first of all, I don't think anybody thinks Oregon is a juggernaut or is going to roll through anything. I mean, they almost lost to Idaho, for heaven's sakes.
Yeah. They didn't almost lose to Idaho. I mean,
they sure did.
They played poorly against them. I don't think they almost lost.
Dude,
did they?
Idaho had a chance at the end to go win the game.
It was 17-14.
Wasn't the final 24-14?
Well, I think 17-14. Yeah, all these games.
It ended up being 24-14.
Yeah, but I think it was 17-14
with
Idaho with the ball.
Yeah.
I think in your territory late in the game.
Wasn't great.
Dude, I think it was white knuckle.
So nobody thinks they're a juggernaut. The question is really just, it's just to gauge how much confidence people have in what Oregon has going on.
Yeah.
Because that was nip and tuck. But I think that whole game against Wisconsin, there's the fake field goal. There's just so many things we could discuss. But I think in the end, I don't know about you. It sounds like not you guys, but for me, I just felt like Oregon was going to win the whole time because of what Wisconsin was rolling out there on offense. You just could not. There's no way that team was going to go down and get a key score.
But the thing is, on that drive where they held them to a field goal in the third quarter, the field was tilted. They were rolling downhill against that.
Yeah.
Like, I thought the defense I thought we were going to get a redux of that Oregon State game where they just could not stop the run.
I thought
and
Wisconsin,
that's what I thought could happen.
Wisconsin just needs to go on some 6-minute drives, eat some clock, and the Wisconsin defense, and I feel bad for Wisconsin's
you would have bet
defense.
on that?
No. I'm just saying, I'm saying the way the momentum was shaping up in that game, with them having the lead and running the ball effectively, I thought they could take that game.
Yeah,
Well,
I had a weird feeling because this is like when I always call them the witches of November, right? When they jump up and they bite you in the ass. And a lot of times it's not that the other team is better. It's just not. You have these games, you sit there and you're like, oh my God. I had this with BYU and Kansas. BYU was better than Kansas in every way. And I was sitting there being like, dude, they're going to lose this game. 100%. I just had that feeling. And you're going to look back, and I thought that was Oregon. And you're going to look back and say, how on earth did we lose to a team with one of the worst quarterbacks I've ever seen in my life? Like, it's just... And yet that's kind of how these games go. And this is where I give credit to Oregon is this year, unlike other years, they're finding ways to win these games. They're finding ways to close them out. And this defense is really, really good. And even though they were getting gashed that one drive, when they needed to, they bowed their back. When the offense needed to, it wasn't pretty, but they got the field goal to kind of go up. The balls it takes to go for it on that 4th down, 4th and 9. And by the way, go back and watch that. The Wisconsin defender, he is a half an inch away from tipping that ball away.
Yep.
And if he tips that away, I think you lose that game. And big balls Chip McGee over there, Dan Lanning comes out on that play, and I'm like, wow. And I
I'm
thought
cooking
that
on your
was
grill.
such a huge turning point. Like they are just finding little. The game, like games like these are won in the margins, and God, Oregon is finding a way this year to win in the
Well,
margins. And in years past,
Yeah.
even the last 2 years.
But to me, that's just execution. Like this is certain that game against Wisconsin is certainly what those upsets look like.
Yeah.
And we all saw it. You know when it started? The second they got that interception in the red zone.
Yeah.
That's when it's like you look at this and go, "Oh boy, here we go."
Yeah.
Freaking Wisconsin. And then you can see their fans start to get into
And
it.
the 7-minute drive where they're just
Yeah.
running it down your throat.
And
Feeling
then-
like your defenders are on skates, just getting pushed back.
their
all of a
first-
sudden you're losing at halftime.
Yeah, their first 4 drives, they had like 6 yards. In fact, I even tweeted out.
It was like 3 and out, 4 and out, or something.
Yeah,
like that.
I was sitting there looking at that offense, and I was like, oh yeah, I was like Wisconsin running the old Brian Ferentz offense. I'm like, bold strategy. Let's see if it works out. And then about midway through the third quarter, I was like, oh my God, they're gonna win with the Brian Ferentz offense. Like somewhere the Ferentz family was sitting around being like, ha ha ha, Iowa football at
Go
its
ahead and
finest.
climb out of my ass for a while.
But they executed when it counts.
Yeah.
And they limited those mistakes in the bigger moments. And it's not like, I don't know. We all know there's going to be close games. That was gutsy.
Yeah.
And now, that being said, you could look at this and go, well, if Wisconsin had anything at quarterback at all,
Yeah,
they were going to get picked off there.
Yeah.
And that may be true. But
but they didn't.
they didn't, and they haven't yet. And the guy that fell on a texter brings up a great point. Remember the guy that fell on the football in the end zone, the Boise State game after Whittington dropped
Jaden
it?
Lamar.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
dropped it
dude,
at the 1 yard line.
What a huge play. In hindsight,
Yeah.
you look back on things like that.
To have seasons like this, you have to
That's
have
right.
an element of luck, and more than once.